Solange Moujon joins me on the set to take a look at today's papers. Hi, Solange. Lots of focus, of course, on Ukraine, where Russian missiles hit Kyiv Sunday for the first time in over a month.
Yeah, and the strikes come as Vladimir Putin warned that he'll expand his targets if Western nations send long-range missiles and weapons to Ukraine. Now, the French paper La Croix explains that this comes after Washington pledged to send medium-range rockets to Kyiv. And La Croix says that Moscow's threat is not only an escalation of the fighting, but it's also a bit of a thorn in Emmanuel Macron's side. For on Friday, the French president said that it is important not to humiliate Russia and that maintaining dialogue is crucial for after-war diplomacy. But the Financial Times explains that Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff shot back at Macron, saying essentially that while some countries are proposing not to humiliate Russia, Ukrainians and their cities are being shelled. Now, for the Washington Post, quote, the battlefield picture is grimmer now than a month ago, but far brighter than 3 months ago. That even if the pendulum has swung again towards pessimism, it is not, quote, the moment to lose faith on Ukraine.
Solange, here in France, the first round of the legislative election is coming up on Sunday, but results are already coming in for lawmakers representing French expats.
Yeah, and one region's results in particular are spilling a lot of ink here in France. Former Prime Minister Manuel Valls, as HuffingtonPost.fr tells us, was Macron's pick to represent French expats in the region around Spain and Portugal. But he received, as the site put it, quote, a slap in the face, or he was eliminated in the first round. Now, rather than a comeback to French politics, which he'd hoped after a failed attempt to become mayor of Barcelona, it was another loss for Valls. And he seems to have said, therefore, farewell to politics. As the Spanish paper El Confidencial explains, the once presidential candidate in France wrote adieu Twitter on the social media site and then closed his account.
So how's the press covering the upcoming vote here in France?
Well, it is a final sprint to a campaign that has been, according to Le Parisien, lackluster. What campaign? The paper asks, saying Macron and Le Pen are just waking up, while Jean-Luc Mélenchon has been pushing hard to convince voters to back his left-leaning union of parties. Now, it is their score, as well as Emmanuel Macron's party's score, that will be most watched. And of this centrist France, The Guardian today has an excellent article where 6 French writers and historians as well, they weigh in on the state of a divided nation.
Some sports news now, and there has been a lot of ink spilled about the recent French Open winner, Rafael Nadal.
Yeah, the Spanish sports daily Marca made a list of all the things that have changed since 2005 and Rafael Nadal's first Roland Garros Cup, from the Pope to the Spanish King to 104 ministers to 3 presidents. But one thing that has remained constant in Spain, the paper says, is, of course, Rafa. Now, for El Mundo, this 14th victory in Paris and 22nd Grand Slam is all the sweeter because Nadal was able to overcome intense pain in his foot. And for ABC, Nadal is unico, that exceptional player, a champion without an end. Meanwhile, and this is the darker side, Mediapart took behind-the-look scenes at the tournament and its darker side, or all the temp workers that were hired for the event. The site found that abusive labor practices were actually rampant, such as workers being asked to do overtime and being forced to do overtime, but not being paid for those extra hours. Unions have been raising a red flag. A crisis center of the temp agency, ADECO, has been created with promises that those workers will be paid. But Mediapart says that this scandal is just the tip of the iceberg over how temp workers are treated.
All right, you're going to wrap up now on a lighter note. Of course, lots of focus about the Platinum Jubilee celebration for Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah, and as we can see from the mashup of many British papers, the Queen's surprise appearance and her letter of thanks, where she wrote, quote, "My heart has been with you all," is a common theme and headline in today's British papers. But with the 4-day holiday over, the hangover of sorts has begun, and especially for Boris Johnson. As the Eye tells us, the Prime Minister is fighting for his political life, as rebel Conservative MPs have challenged his leadership, paving a way for a no-confidence vote. So as we see in Peter Songi's cartoon, the big dog's pants are on fire. This Monday, Johnson is worse for wear, wishing he was still in bed counting sheep. Another take on Monday's hangover theme, Morden Moreland, his wordplay cartoon of Paddington Bear saying to a tipped-over Johnson, "It must have been the booze," referring here to the Prime Minister's chilly welcome during the Jubilee celebrations, but also to those drinking parties that may have tipped the tables for him.
That's right. Well, Boris Johnson's going to be facing that no confidence vote this evening. We'll be covering that for you, of course, here on France 24. Solange, thanks so much for that look at the papers.